all of the small hauling companies anyways, work hard, build their business through hard work, good service, word of mouth, and the hope of those people is that that's my retirement plan. That's my equivalent 401k or my ability to sell something I've worked hard to build, any business, just like you would the bar or anything else that you do. And when the government wants to walk in and say, you know what, we're going to set this out for bid, you have an opportunity to lose that business.
Right.
Lose business that, frankly, that small hauler will be making payments on for the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, and you bring up a really good point, is that when you're looking at any kind of business and you're thinking about selling that business, I mean, it isn't just the material assets that go into what that business is worth. There's something that's called goodwill, your customer list. And so in many cases, that may be worth a whole lot more than the trucks that have been depreciated.
Absolutely.
Because, you can have future income coming from the goodwill from that customer list. Those trucks have to be replaced over time, but how you replace them is indeed with that customer list. And if you've had somehow your customer list has been decreased in half, the value of your company is really gone down dramatically, I would think.
Absolutely, Diana. As a matter of fact, that very point was something that we have brought up at the state legislature in the context of government-managed organized collection. It seemed to us and to citizens as well that if a city proceeds to basically say to you, you can't do business in this community anymore because we've decided to bid that out and give it to the X company, and you've lost 1,000 customers, you've really lost 1,000 customers.
Right.
It seemed to us that that would only be appropriate that if you displaced a hauler who's doing business in that community, that the city ought to be responsible in some way to compensate that hauler for his loss of business, because the city made that decision on behalf of the citizens who frankly didn't want it to be made.
Right, and it really is an economic taking in many ways. Absolutely.
No question.
Absolutely.
Now I understand we have another caller on the line. Caller, thank you for calling in. Questions or comments for us this evening?
I think we're missing the point, Diane.
Okay.
This is to be an entity all of its own, requiring probably 50, 60 more employees to handle the financing and the distribution of responsibility and all the other jargon and ethnic tranquility that goes with everything. And think of all the votes you're going to generate for this, your councilman and your so-called mayor that I still think is a pimp. Good night.
Okay. Well, you bring up a good question, is that does this indeed, if this government managed takeover of trash hauling, if it goes into effect, really who does it benefit job-wise?
Well, I don't know that. Let me start by answering a different part of that first. I'm sure you've heard the phrase before, you don't know, you don't know.
Yes.
If you're not in the business of managing the collection, as an example, you may not understand the fact that even though you'd love to believe that the hauler or haulers that you pick that win the bids to provide service within your community, they're going to take care of things. But when you manage that collection, the perception of the people is the fact that you're the person that made that decision. So when they have a problem, they come to the community. They come to the administrative, somebody in an administrative capacity has to answer the phone. The questions range from, I'm going to be out of town for the next 2 months for the winter. How do I handle, am I going to have to pay for the service? When are the Christmas trees going to be picked up? My cart blew away in the wind. The wind came up and blew my cart away. I need a new one. There is a dozen, literally a dozen interactions that take place between a community and a hauler when they have this organized scenario, and it is a significant amount of time. You don't even get into the point as to whether or not you're going to bill the citizens through the city. Are you going to put it on a tax rolls? Are you going to put it on a utility bill?
Right.
Who's going to handle the collections involved with this? If there is collections involved, who from the city calls the hauler and stops service?
Right,
I mean,
and then of course is another issue too, is that if indeed it is mandated, then you are charged whether you use it or not. I mean, that's the way that the recycling is set up in Maplewood and probably in many communities, but certainly in Maplewood right now, is that everybody's charged a recycling fee whether you recycle or not. And so you pay to not participate, you pay to participate. It makes no difference. And I think that a lot of folks, you know, that they find that somehow counterintuitive in many respects. And I think, you know, one of the things that I know that I've heard from some folks is that they go, well, you know, if I could get a cheaper price, maybe it would be a good thing. And then I've asked them, well, what do you think is the government's or the city's motivation to try to get a better price for you? Because wouldn't you like to have a better price on, well, I think one of the citizens brought this up at a meeting, wouldn't you like to have better price on your groceries?
Exactly.
So now it sounds like we have another caller on the line. Nope. Okay, they didn't. Now we might have time for one citizen clip from that meeting too. That
sure.
I don't know if they've got it queued up yet, but go ahead, Doug. You were going to say
Diana,
something there.
I wanted to make a different point that was raised by the mayor at the city council meeting, and it's an important one, because the implication was that if under the current system, where haulers do business directly with citizens or their customers, there's some potential liability for individuals for the disposal of the waste. And
you know, I heard him say that too.
And I didn't have a chance, because
Yes.
my time was short and slipped my mind, to respond to that, because it's an important point and one that needs to be clarified for the citizens. I am not aware of any case ever of a citizen, an individual resident, involving any liability on their part for disposal of waste in some sort of problem with the Environmental Protection Agency or the PCA. Never. So that's not true. I don't know where the mayor got that information, but it's not true. As a matter of fact, it's just the opposite. If in fact the city manages waste and takes this service over as the manager of waste, they may incur liability if in fact there's a problem with the disposal of the waste someplace. I don't know if they ever will, but much more potential if the city takes this service over and manages it than individuals make their own choices.
Right. You know, I'm glad you brought that up, because I had heard that as well, and I thought, you know, that sounds like something I'm going to have to investigate, because I had never heard that either. But it also, if that were true, that would actually be the reason why the city should not get into managing
Precisely.
the collection of trash, because then the city would be responsible, because they're the contracting party,
It's the city's
and they're
charge,
responsible for everything that any citizen is put into there, and then the city would be subject to that liability. And is that what citizens want, so their taxpayer dollars can go to fight off some other potential liability that was because of somebody that they don't know who it was?
So
I mean, I don't know. That, to me, that sounds like the counter argument.
Exactly.
But I'm glad to hear you say that you've never really heard of that.
I'm not aware of any case where individual citizens have ever been charged with the liability for throwing out their waste in a system like this.
Yeah.
So I want to dispel any concerns that citizens have that the current system might provide them with any kind of liability. As a matter of fact, it's just the opposite. If the city gets involved, they might incur liability. I'm not saying they would, but they might, where citizens have never been charged with any problem.
Right, exactly. So now I understand we do have a video clip ready, so let's take a look. This, of course, is from that special city council meeting, and hopefully it's one of the citizens who got up to say what they had on their mind. Let's take a look. Well, we certainly have a lot of folks there. We could see that a lot of people attended. I know that they're getting it queued up so that we can get one of those people, one of those lucky people, is going to stand up and say their piece. So I'll while we're waiting, go ahead.
Sure. In the meantime, I wanted to point out, and Mark, I think, very effectively did this at the city council meeting. Is a lot of trucks move down the streets of Maplewood like any place else, and matter of fact, some of the citizens mentioned this. Are you going to ban FedEx trucks, or say we can only have UPS trucks come down the road? Are we going to deal with only one roofer can come down the road, or one construction company? It just, you get into situations that really don't make any sense, And why would you single out garbage trucks, which are not any more problematic than any other trucks, especially since the roads are built to withstand the traffic that's currently on those roads.
Exactly. Now, Mark, I see you have a couple of comments, but I've also gotten the signal they're ready with that video clip. So let's get the video clip, then we'll come back to Mark. Go ahead.
A lot easier to hear if we try to keep quiet.
First of all, Will, do you have a 9:30 curfew? 150 people?
Well, that was one of the clips. There you go. Yeah, that was another thing, too, that there was really a push to stay on schedule, and that there was this thing about that if your comment is on one of these poster boards already, there's no need for you to get up. Because, you know, we see it written on here, that's enough. We don't have to hear it again. But, you know, how do you know which are the most important things that, you know, somebody thinks in the community if you haven't allowed people to come forward and say what is the most important thing to them?
Well, you know, one of the things that were on that poster board was the cumbersome nature of the organized collection statute.
Oh.
And that was cumbersome only from government, from the city's perspective. There was, I believe, 150 people was not as many. I think there was 200 people there. There was 3 rooms full of people. And those people needed to be educated. They needed to be heard, obviously. And that's exactly what that process is about. It allows the citizens to clearly understand what's going on and register their opinion so that they don't have these studies that go on for 10 months and then try and pass something that nobody knows anything about.
Right, exactly. Well, it sounds like they got a clip here.
Some of the issues, I'm going to try to speak for some maybe things we haven't heard here real quick. And just 2 broad thoughts. One is, when you take a look at some of the pros for organized trash collection, on surface it actually seems to be logical, but when you look at it, you could make those same arguments for organized system of grocery shopping, for instance. We probably have a lot more wear and tear on our roads from grocery shopping than anything else. Cripes, we've got a Rainbow store, you got a Cub Food store, we've got a Target Superstore, and probably a number of residents make more than 1 trip a week. You could have organized grocery shopping and really cut down. And I tell you what, if you had only one grocery shopping option, the city could contract with them and get better discounts and better prices too. So is that what we really want as residents? No. So that's one thought. And the other thought probably falls under the category, and I'm going to put this bluntly, probably just don't trust you. And I really think it comes down to that.
So there you go. We're down to the last 2 minutes. We didn't get to hear much more, but there was a whole lot more to that. I think a couple other people came up and talked about the issue of trust.
And I can tell you Maplewood is not unique. We've heard exactly the same comments. In every community we've gone, there have been overflowing crowds, and the people here have said exactly what they've said in Olmsted County and Rochester, what they've said in Falcon Heights, and they've always come and said, please don't do this to us, and many have raised those same issues. So, not extraordinary. I wish I could say the people of Maplewood are extraordinary, and I'm sure they are in many other ways. But in this regard, they're just like the rest of the folks of the state who want to see this happen. Diana, as we wrap up, I just want people to understand that just because there was a good support at a public hearing for the current system, and 1,600 families have said don't do this, this doesn't mean that it's the end of the line here. I don't know what the City Council is going to do. I don't know if this is going to come up again, but I please urge you on this, as residents, to continue to contact your City Council members and your mayor not to do this. I urge you to send in the card if you haven't. Believe it or not, elected officials, and Mayor Longley can tell you, listen to the people. And that's the only way for people to let them know that this is not something that they want to do. I don't vote in Maplewood, but all of you do.
Right. And I think that is very well spoken. I want to thank both of you for coming on the program. And of course, citizens out there, thank you for tuning in. And of course, don't touch that dial, because there's another program coming on right after this. And of course, again, thank you for tuning in. Good night.